Do you remember the first Minecraft world you ever loaded into? For many it was the tutorial world that was included in the console editions of Minecraft, a world that taught you the basics of Minecraft and gave you somewhat of an idea of how you could express your creativity in this sandbox game. It pointed you in the right direction and that's a good thing, right? For me, I distinctly remember spawning in a snowy taiga biome. This stood out to me because I had been watching Noob Sniper's Let's Play of Minecraft and expected the world to look exactly the same. I was planning on building my house on the same hill that he did, going and using the same spawner that he did. The random generation was a complete shock to me and an experience that I will never forget. That experience of entering a new world that was foreign to me and I didn't know how it worked. Do you have an experience like that from your childhood? An infamous example of this is the barrel of doom in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So many kids didn't know how to control this barrel when playing the game blind for the first time, getting stuck here and never progressing past Carnival Night Zone. And while you could say that's the game not communicating to the player properly, which it is, we would never have this inside joke within the community about this seemingly inconspicuous barrel. We would have never formed such strong memories about Carnival Night Zone. So many games that we play these days have been spoiled for us in one way or another, whether it be watching someone else play it on YouTube first, watching developer updates, or having a friend explain it to us. The raw experience of being way in out of your depth and only learning what the game allows of you is an art form that I think we are slowly losing. We just don't experience games anymore. Think about it. How many games in your library were you introduced to by watching someone else play it? And how many games in your library did you go in completely blind? How many games did you actually form an experience with? If you could play a game again for the first time, which one would it be? It's a question that's been asked on internet forums many times over the years and a question that I'm asking you now. Yes, you, watching this video, go down to the comments and let me know. You don't have to right this moment, but think about it. I'm incredibly curious. When Breath of the Wild was released, many people began to cite this as their one game that they would want to replay for the first time. The feeling of awe and excitement that you got leaving the Shrine of Resurrection for the first time is something that you can never replicate. Seeing a boulder on top of a hill that you could roll down and take out a whole camp of bokoblins in one foul swoop, or the panicked nature of first encountering a Lionel are all one-time things. Once you've experienced it, it's gone. It's fleeting. No matter how long of a break we may take away from our favourite games, no matter how much we may forget, time always remembers. You can't bend time and have a first experience twice. Unfortunately. It's a fact that many of us don't like to accept. We often just chalk it up to games being better when we were younger or simply nostalgia speaking. But we both know that's not true. Games are better and more polished now more than ever, and we can form just as strong of memories with games now as we did when we were younger. We as gamers simply don't experience games anymore. And we never will again. I have this funny thing that happens to me every now and then, where a game will just appear in my Steam library. It's not because a friend has gifted it to me, no, that would be too simple. It's because I have purchased and downloaded it flippantly one night and then completely forgot about it, letting it sit there and collect dust in my Steam library. That, or there's a little Steam goblin who lives in my walls and buy me games that he knows I'll like, which, I appreciate that, but, get out of my walls, please. Either way, whether it be me or the goblin, it's quite a treat. Opening a game I know nothing about and being able to be completely immersed in it is a feeling like no other. Stumbling around, making really simple mistakes, or just taking a while to get a grasp of game's mechanics is a feeling that, at the time, may be really annoying, but also cements memories of those games deep inside my mind. One of the games that I had this happen with recently was Neon Abyss, a roguelike 2D shooter-esque game that has this really weird egg-hatching mechanic that I could not understand for the life of me. Sometimes it felt like you got an infinite number of dudes following you around, and other times it felt like you were stranded on a deserted island with no one in sight. The amount of fun that I've had playing this game despite not understanding a lot of its mechanics at first is absolutely insane. It's a good game, don't get me wrong, but I know that objectively speaking, it's just another run-of-the-mill roguelike game. And yet I hold Neon Abyss so closely to me because I was able to just experience it. I was able to sit down and, despite being a weak little piss baby at first, I learned from my mistakes and became better and better. That drive to learn, to improve, is an innate human drive that is often lost on us by learning through someone else's experience instead of making your own. With Neon Abyss, I had an experience that was like no other. I didn't know what to expect, and because of that, the more and more I played, the more and more I was blindsided and blown away by what are on the surface rather simple mechanics. Every little unlock that I got or boss that I slayed felt like I was carving my own path and improving, even though realistically speaking, I was just following the predetermined path set by the developer. I was able to experience the game, on my own, in a completely unbiased way, and that's beautiful. So, do you remember your first Minecraft world? How about your second? Third, fourth, you get the idea. If you said no, that's okay. Once you've experienced something, time has robbed you of ever having that feeling ever again. I'm sure you remember your first multiplayer world you ever played with your friends though. The bases everyone built, and the one guy who would always try to set up a shop as if anyone was actually going to trade diamonds with this man and not just go out and get them himself. Why did every server have one of these people? Maybe you created factions and fought amongst each other in pseudo-clan wars, or you all just lived in harmony together and butt-rushed the Ender Dragon. How about your first adventure map that you ever downloaded and played? Maybe it was one of those ones that you saw everyone else playing on YouTube and you gave it a shot, or maybe it was more of a niche, unknown pick. But after your annual Minecraft binge session where you play Minecraft and nothing in your life matters, not your family, not your friends, not filing your taxes, do you remember the world that you created and experienced during that binge time? Maybe. For many, the answer is no. I know I don't, and I spent so many hours in these worlds collecting materials, finding pets, and building homes. And isn't that kind of sad? Gaming should be an escape from the outside world. It should be an experience that you cherish forever, right? Should we allow games to simply be a distraction to us? Being another source to channel our attention into, much like TikTok or YouTube, or should we be experiencing them? Should we treat games as an art, or should we treat games as a time waster? I have nearly 1,000 hours clocked in the Binding of Isaac, and do I remember most of those runs? Absolutely not. Do I remember my first run? Yeah, of course. I found we need to go deeper, tunneled through every floor, and thought this game was piss easy for babies until I got absolutely fucking steamrolled by Satan. Many runs after that, I stumbled about the floors trying to figure out how to dodge enemy attack patterns properly. I'd completely shot myself in the foot on my first run, and this wasn't a mistake that I could just erase and redo. This was a part of my learning experience with Isaac. But is it a bad thing that I don't remember most of my time with Isaac? I played this game for thousands of hours. For many years of my life, it was the only game I was playing, excluding the occasional game that I would become hyper-focused on. And I remember very little of my time with it. I definitely got my money's worth out of the game, and that's not a bad thing, right? I mean, it's still up there as one of my favorite games of all time. And that's without me remembering a lot of my time spent with the game. So why? Do roguelikes simply give you countless new experiences that you can sink an ungodly amount of hours into them without feeling burnt out? Or was it the developers continuing to update and keep the game fresh? The countless community mods that might as well be official updates from developers, or maybe I was just too poor to afford another game. Should it matter either way? I had fun, right? And shouldn't that be what matters? Sure, we often look back on our time with games from our childhood and the memories we formed with them and yearn for that time. If you're telling me that you've not watched one of these nostalgic Minecraft videos and cried, then I know that you're lying to me. But what we don't remember from our childhood is all the time that we spent playing those same great games, just enjoying the moment. We know time marches forward endlessly, so enjoying the present moment with no regard to how your future self remembers it isn't a bad thing. And yet, I feel less and less we're really experiencing games. It's perfectly fine, good even, to play a game, enjoy it, and that be that. Move on to the next game and never look back. But don't you miss all those experiences that you've formed gaming over the years? Recently, I purchased and played Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered after having watched countless videos about the game. I wanted to play this game for so damn long. I couldn't wait for it to get a port to the PC. I consumed everything I could about the game. That's how excited I was about this release. I had had the whole game's story, post-credit scene, small interaction between characters, all spoiled for me. The skins the game had to offer, the collectibles, the unique suit powers, the Easter eggs, spoiled, all prior to playing the game. I was just so hyped that I had to fill that void inside of me somehow. And you know what? I absolutely loved playing Spider-Man. I was obsessed when I finally got my hands on it. Whenever I was at work or eating dinner or avoiding paying my taxes, I was thinking about playing Spider-Man. I played that game every single day. Whenever I wasn't playing the game, I was thinking about playing the game. I collected every collectible there was, got every achievement there is, completed every enemy base, finished all the DLCs, installed mods, and then played the post-game with said mods. I absolutely ravaged that game. I was like a swarm of locusts devouring every crop within sight until acres of field were empty. I consumed everything until there wasn't anything left for me to consume. And I should have been satisfied, but I wasn't. After finishing it, I decided that I had had enough. I had originally planned to play its kinda sequel, Spider-Man Miles Morales, afterwards, but I never got that far in Miles Morales. The game is fantastic from what little I've played of it, don't get me wrong, but I'm just bored of it. That's right. I'm bored of a game that has incredible combat, traversal, characters, and graphics, all because I played its prequel. Isn't that fucking crazy? I'll never have my first experience witnessing the plot twists that this game sets up, even if some of them are very obvious from the start. I'll never experience unlocking a suit and being amazed by the fact that Insomniac somehow managed to get that into the game. I'll never know what it was like to first try the combat, fail a bunch of times, and eventually get into a groove where I was so good with it. I had all of this ruined for me before even playing the game. Thinking back on my time with Marvel's Spider-Man now, I didn't experience a thing. It was just a temporary distraction in my life. I had robbed myself of the opportunity to experience it and its sequel years ago. And although I may have forgotten about many of the small details, time had not. Playing the game, every single thing that I had learned over the years began rushing back to me. I knew it was going to happen in every scene, I knew what every suit did the moment I unlocked it. I had experienced the game years ago and was just playing it now as a formality. I enjoyed my time with Spider-Man a lot, but I didn't experience a thing with it. It was a hollow venture. Speaking of hollow, Hollow Knight, this small little indie gem that I've never spoken about before and you may not have even heard of before. When I first played it, I somehow managed to go in blind. I had not heard about this game whatsoever for the 3 years after its release, and I don't even remember how I found it. I just played it one day, and it's now my favorite game of all time. Well, until Silksong releases. If Silksong ever releases. I have so many memories and experiences from this one game. For example, I got lost and didn't realize you were meant to wall jump over this pit to get into the City of Tears. And so, I wandered around for a while and eventually I got lost in deepness and had to fight my way back up to the surface. I completely walked past the nailsmith my first time playing the game, and did not know you could upgrade your nail until after I completed all the DLC. Every time I unlocked a dream version of a fight, I didn't know you could return to it later on, and so I fought the Soul Tyrant again and again and again and again until I finally beat it. And then I did the same thing with the Lost Kin. When I figured out on my own to use the dream nail on the guard to enter the White Palace, it made me feel like a genius. At one point I got stuck and found the Colosseum of Fools. I went into the third Colosseum trial with no upgraded spells or nails, thinking that that was how I was going to progress the game, trying again and again until I finally beat it. And that experience was one of the best feelings that I've ever had playing a game. And I was able to experience all of these things and forge my own path by just immersing myself in the game and letting it be its own standalone experience. It doesn't matter how much you may try to immerse yourself in the game's world, if you had had prior experience with it, time will always remember. Going in blind to Hollow Knight made me feel so connected and passionate about this small little indie game that should take you a little over 60 hours to fully complete, that I ended up putting in just shy of 200 hours into it. It made me feel so strongly about the game, more than I ever had before, that I decided to write and research a 5,500 word essay about it. And then I decided that wasn't enough and I wanted more of the game, so I bought and learned an editing software also that I could talk about this game some more and then upload it to YouTube. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't feel this strongly about Hollow Knight if I had not experienced it myself. If I had seen a video reviewing and discussing the game's secrets before playing it, I would have essentially traveled through time to fuck over my future self. Experiencing games matter. So, have you decided what game you'd play again for the first time? Good, let me know down below. When I was in high school, every summer break I would restart Breath of the Wild on a new save file. Due to my incredibly poor memory, exploring and discovering all the game's intricacies on a second, third, or fourth playthrough was just as exciting as the first time around. It was like I was experiencing the game all over again. I would sink hours and hours into the game over the break, and it would be just like I was living in another world. And then come next summer break, I would do it all over again. But it was all just a facade, wasn't it? I wasn't really experiencing it again, was I? So many things will always stand out to me that I learned in my first playthrough. For starters, I know the general lay of the land and where all the certain villages are and what gear they contain. I also always head straight to Hyrule Castle and grab the Hylian Shield on every new playthrough. I know how the Magnesis ability interacts with the game's environments and its enemies. I cannot experience Breath of the Wild again, ever. That feeling of figuring out and discovering everything this new foreign world has to offer is gone. No matter how hard I try, no matter how long of a break I take from the game, and no matter how absolutely terrible my memory may be, time will always remember. Experiences are fleeting moments, but that adds to the value of them after all. You can eat a packet of chips every single day with ease, it's not hard to go to the store and buy some. But eating and experiencing something special like street food at a night market, that experience stays with you. That experience is yours, and it's special. I can play The Binding of Isaac every day for the rest of my life and be perfectly content with it. But experiencing new games, that's something that will always stick with me. I won't remember my time playing Isaac every day, but I will always remember my first time playing Hollow Knight. A game that I never truly experienced was Undertale, which is weird because it used to stand as my favourite game of all time. Going into Undertale, I already knew that there were 3 different routes that you could take. I knew that if you were determined enough, you could spare everyone in the underground no matter how hard the game would often try to convince you otherwise. I already knew what Sans and Papyrus and Undyne and Alfie should sound like. I already knew what all the areas of the game were before I even ended up playing it. Hell, I already knew about this fucking thing, which really should have been a surprise, all because I watched it on YouTube first. I never experienced Undertale. The idea of this video likely dawned on me years ago when Markiplier first played Undertale. He mentioned how every single comment on his videos were just criticizing him for not playing the game the exact way they wanted him to play. He was trying to play the game on his own and have a true experience with it, and the internet simply wouldn't let him. So it's true that I felt so strongly about a game whose playthrough I don't even remember, but that's probably more a testament to how good Undertale is in a meta-narrative way. You get a lot more out of Undertale's characters and inside jokes and music than you do the actual gameplay. I've forgotten my playthrough of Undertale a long time ago, but time doesn't forget. If I played Undertale again, I'm sure it would all come rushing back to me in an instant. I never experienced Undertale, and I never will. The title of this video, Games You Can Never Experience Again, is referring to, honestly, most games. We live in a time of instant communication. There are so many games that I've never played and I've never experienced and I never will. I could rectify the first problem. If I really wanted to, I could play Sonic Frontiers, but I will never experience Sonic Frontiers. I've consumed too much content about it. News about the DLC, reviews of the game, people just generally talking about it. The thing is, games can be art if you allow yourself to experience them. But you won't. You're an adult now. You make the decisions on what games you get to play, which means doing your own research, reading or watching reviews, and following a game closely throughout its development as to not waste your time and money. It's no longer whatever game caught your eye at the local video rental or whichever one your family decided to give you one Christmas, or even the games that you played at your friend's house one random afternoon and got absolutely hooked on and definitely didn't only go over to his house to play that game. It's always an informed decision now, which means the art of experiencing games is dead. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. After all, the reason we remember and harbour such strong memories and experiences that we form with the games is because it's such a unique thing. If you were constantly inundated with new experiences, emotions, and attachments, you would be burnt out so incredibly quickly. Maybe it's a good thing that only a few games can be truly experienced these days and cement themselves in our memories. Some games are just meant to give you a few good 1,000 hours of enjoyment. Not all games have to speak to you on a personal level and be incredibly impactful and profound. There's a reason you remember your first Minecraft world. There's a reason you have a game from your childhood that you remember so fondly, that if I asked you, you could go on and on and on for hours explaining exactly what made you feel so connected and bonded with that game. Experiences are special, and God knows game companies nowadays aren't always giving you the best options when it comes to forming new ones. So take that step, and start to form them yourself. Browse the Steam store and buy a game that catches your eye. Maybe in a genre that you know that you'll like, or maybe not. Get creative, try new things. If there is a game that you're excited about, don't watch any coverage on the game. Don't consume every bit of knowledge there is about it in the name of hype. Go in blind on the first day and allow yourself to be completely immersed in this new experience. Ask for vague recommendations from your friends, and hell, if you don't have any, I'll fill in. Here are a couple of game recommendations for you. Noita is a game that you can sink as much time into as you want or as little time as you want. I won't say any more than that to avoid spoilers. I'll just say that it's all up to how much you're willing to stumble and fall before you give up. Hollow Knight, which although I briefly mentioned it earlier, I didn't even begin to scratch the surface of the game. If you've not played it, I cannot recommend it enough. It didn't shoot up to being my favourite game of all time for no reason. If you've played both of those games already, or you've looked at them and they don't seem very interesting to you, then, well, it's your turn. I want you to leave some of your best obscure or just generally great game recommendations in the comments. Don't be specific or anything, just titles and maybe a very brief description. Perhaps what genre the game is in or how many hours you got out of it. Relearn what it's like to have that childlike wonder and experience of being fully immersed in a game again. And hey, keep playing games that you can enjoy just passing the time with. We may not be able to relive the past, we can't make time forget. But together, maybe we can start experiencing games again. Thank you, and good night. Whoa, okay, so my last video blew the fuck up, and 99.6% of you aren't subscribed, so fix that. I hope you liked this video. This is more the type of content I want to be producing, not just exclusively tier lists of game music, so feel free to drop a like if this was right up your alley. I have my first video right here if you want to see a janky video talking about Hollow Knight, and I have my previous video there in case you somehow missed it. If you do have good game OST suggestions that you'd like to see me rank, then drop them down below and I'll consider it. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and have a good night.